Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Today, we're talking with someone who has a personal brand that you won't soon forget. He calls himself the Blind Blogger. We're about to find out how he handles business, fears, setbacks, and success, and how his personal brand leads the way. I'm Tanya Eberhardt, founder of BrandFace. We help business stars differentiate themselves, and we do that through personal branding.
And I'm Michael Carr. I'm the COO of BrandFace. I was actually a client before I became a partner. We're the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe. And we do Be Bold Branding podcast to recognize bold branding moves or bold moves, period, and to help you take the fear out of putting yourself out there without any hesitations, just like the man you're fixing to meet here today.
Yep, talk about bold. Maxwell Ivy grew up in a family of carnival owners. That's a first for this show.
It is a first.
All right.
I love it.
He started losing his vision due to retinitis pigmentosa. I believe I have that correct, right, Max? Got it. All right. At an early age, becoming legally blind by junior high school and totally blind by the time he graduated from college. He did graduate from traditional schools, achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, and worked in the family business until his dad's death forced the closure of their small show. Needing something new, he started helping people sell surplus rides. Can't wait to hear about that. He had to learn so much, including how to hand code HTML, recruit clients, set fees, build an email list, manage social media, and more. People were inspired by his willingness to take on difficult challenges and encouraged him to share more about being a blind entrepreneur. This led to a second site as the Blind Blogger, with 3 books out so far and a 4th one due anytime. He's also the host of his own podcast called What's Your Excuse? Well, welcome, Maxwell, to the program.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with y'all today.
We are too. We've really looked forward to this because we have 2 firsts on here, Maxwell. We have our first blind blogger, and we also have our first person that came from a family of carnival shows. Those are very unique, and I can't wait to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, in fact, that's where we're going to start off. Okay, tell us what it was like growing up in a carnival family. And, you know, add in a little color, like, was it generations of family members, or did your parents start that journey? Like, what? Give us some background here.
Right. Well, as my dad used to tell people, the only way you get into the carnival business is by birth or marriage. So my grandfather started the show in the 50s, and several of his kids, including my father, who was one of the son-in-laws, had carnivals of their own. At one time, there were 4 members of the Wagner Ivy family operating carnivals in Texas. And there's still one family member out there working. My cousin Jason, his children and grandchildren are still in the business. And he has grown his midway up to about 30, 35 rides. And several of his rides are worth, or at least when new, were worth over $500,000. So he's done very well for himself as the last remaining carny in the carny family. And, you know, growing up in the family, it really wasn't, a lot of the time we really weren't all that sure we were all that different, because my grandfather bought a piece of land and gave all of his kids each a place to build a home or put a mobile home. So except during school hours, during the school year, most of the time we were with other kids of other families in the same business. So it was very insulated sometimes. And, you know, when we went to school, basically, we really never had to worry about too much trouble with other kids, because there was always a bunch of Servers, Wagners, Ivies, Crouches, whatever, in the same grade, you know. Mm-hmm. So in the summers, we would spend the summer with my family as they would be working in Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Kansas. And during the spring and fall, we would go to school. Either an aunt, an uncle, in my case, my grandmother, Mary Wagner, would put us in school until the school year was over and you could go and join the carnival for a while. And also back then, it was seasonal. You worked maybe 8 or 9 months out of the year, even here in Texas where the weather is better. And the other 2 or 3 months out of the year, you had to find something to do. So over the years, my family has sold Christmas trees. We've sold fireworks. We've sold stuffed toys on the side of the road, and we have set up kiddie rides in malls and at flea markets just to have money coming in during the winter so we could work on the rides to go out again the next season. And I mostly did the bookings. I also operated some kids' games, but I was our family's 12th man. If any of y'all are basketball fans, that's the guy who sits on the end of the bench in an emergency, he plays. So there were times that, being a big, strong 300+ pound person, that I helped set up and take down carnival rides, and was very happy on those weeks I got to get to do it.
Max, you think about all the secondary jobs you guys did, selling Christmas trees and fireworks, that like all your entire life was just nothing but one big bundle of fun. That's how I see it. It's like, that's fantastic. That just to be raised in a family like that, to just like, what fun thing are we going to do next to make money?
All right, well, let me run down some unfun things you had to do, like scraping old paint off of carnival rides because you didn't have the money or the equipment to have them sandblasted or pressure washed. Wrapping change, tearing the used tickets so nobody could use them again on the midway. Washing muddy balacloths, sticking candy, putting the sticks in the candy apples so they could dip them and put the candy on them. Lots of really dirty, messy jobs. And at one time or another, I've had grease pretty much all over me.
You could have been on an episode of Dirty Jobs. Right?
Yes, yeah, those are some of the dirty jobs. Yeah, and the other dirty job that I had is I've done a lot of cold calling over my years working on the bookings, and for most of our business life, we had maybe 7 or 8 rides. There was a couple years where we had 12, but in Texas, that's a small show. Most of the time we were competing against carnivals with 2 or 3 times as many rides as we had, with stuff that was newer, flashier, and scarier. So we only got bookings by being very persistent. And so I've been told no a lot of times over the years trying to book a carnival. And I've been told no in several languages, and even by some people who I knew they were going to go wash this dirt off their feet after they finished telling me no.
I have a little in common with you there, just a little bit, Max. I sold vacuum cleaners door to door. I was told no quite often too, and mine wasn't fun. It sucked. But I'm bummed, right?
Well, I got to say now, I have been in the food service industry, but in high school and out of high school, and I've worked for some carnivals and stuff, and that is hard work. It truly is. I mean, and then you're packing up and then headed to the next setup, right? And it's the whole process just starts over again, and you're not getting to ride the rides; you're setting them up.
Well, they would let us ride them as long as they weren't busy. If there were people on the midway, you were supposed to be out of sight and out of mind, and doing something that wouldn't get you in no trouble. So, and most of the time we did get to ride free, but there was when the bumper cars first started becoming a thing, we had to have tickets to ride the bumper car on our own carnival midway. It was one of those rides. It was just such a big investment in money and time and labor that is, no, we ain't taking no passes. We ain't letting you on here for free. Go get some tickets. So that was one of the few times we didn't get to ride for free. Setting up and taking down rides. And actually one of the most important lessons that I ever learned, and one of the things that has stayed with me through to today that I find really helpful, especially in the online world where everything is subject to change next week, if not sooner, is in the carnival business. And this is true for anybody that runs a small business, whether it's a family business or something you've started on your own, is you rarely have all the time, money, or other resources that you would like to have. Usually it's a matter of just figuring out, how do I get to the next point, from A to B to C. And in the carnival world, all that really matters is, are you open on Thursday or Friday night so people can buy a funnel cake or a cotton candy and ride the Ferris wheel? And if you can do that, no matter what you had to do in the previous 4 or 5 days, it was a good week. So you get really good at being flexible, adaptable, and implementing solutions, even if you don't like the solution.
Excellent point. That's a really good point.
That is very true. Very true. So let's shift gears here for just a second, Max. Here at BrandFace, we do personal branding. So your personal brand really is your story, and it's, what you're known for and how people connect to you. And how has your personal story, especially when you hit high school and all of your eyesight was gone, how has that helped you to build your business? I was looking on the bright side, since you're a super positive person. Tell me how that's helped you build your business.
Right. And I couldn't agree with you more. To me, branding, really, it just comes down to your story. That could be your personal story or your business story, or both. But really, it's your story and how you tell it. And my story, as you say, being willing to start an online business when I didn't have the first clue what I was doing, and I had no money or talent or skills. Before WordPress and Wi-Fi and Facebook, even, because I started in 2007. So, to do those kinds of things, and of course also be blind and not have the advantage of being able to use the what you see is what you get programs, or some of the other options that a sighted person has. My brand really became this person who overcomes adversity and just finds a way to get things done. And most of the time that was me learning new things. But a lot of the time it was me asking for help and connecting with people online, or people from my previous work in the carnival business who were willing to help me do things that I needed to do in order to get to that next step. And I mean, when I did my first website, I was online. I went to forums and I would ask people, "What do I do?" And they would say, "You really don't even know enough to ask the right questions yet." And they'd get mad at me. And eventually somebody said, "Go to W3C School Online and start learning the basics of creating a website." And I did that. And as a result, I was able to teach myself how to code HTML and get a website online. Now, I did a poor job picking my colors, and I couldn't edit the images people sent me. So I would have 2 or 3 different size images on the same page together and stuff like that. And more than once somebody said, "Max, your website is so bright that Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder could argue over it,"
That's great.
But it's basically just, okay, here is what I need to get done. How badly am I willing to do it? What skills or experience do I have that I can apply to it? And of the things that I don't have and don't know, who do I know, or who can I find where I can learn it, I can get some help, and I can accomplish it. And I find that, especially with business people, the most asked about topic that I speak on, whether it's on a podcast interview or public speaking, is this topic of interdependence, the idea of building a community, both through online and in-person connections, and then being willing to ask for help and accept help when offered. And as a result of being able to do that, and now teaching other people to do that, a lot of entrepreneurs are finding that they are more able to solve their immediate problems. They're more able to accomplish the goals they need to accomplish, because they're not trying to do it all by themselves. And, me being blind, I've never really thought I had the option of doing it all by myself. I always thought, like, "Max, if you're going to do this, you're going to need a lot of help, and you better start asking now." And that's what I've done for 14 years now, through the Midway Marketplace and the Blind Blogger and the What's Your Excuse podcast, and now the What's Your Excuse Network. And I never claim to know what I'm doing. I always admit that I could use help, that there's more I could know about what I'm trying to do at the time. And that has all become this brand. And I don't know if y'all have seen my logo or not. You may have on my social media accounts. But my logo, which was created by a woman who I told her nothing as far as what I wanted in my logo, just I wanted her to make it representative of me and what people think of me. And she came back with a logo that shows me in silhouette wearing what looks like a cape from a superhero in front of a globe, and across my chest it says The Blind Blogger, and below me it says What's Your Excuse? So, my willingness to take on difficult challenges in spite of my blindness, in spite of everything I don't have, don't know, and can't do, has become my brand. And this whole thing of what's your excuse? That wasn't my idea. That was just people watching Max and going, you know, Max, you started a blog. I got friends who can see who won't start a blog. So Max, if you can do it, then what's my excuse or what's their excuse? And it became a thing. And this is one of the things I've really learned about branding. And I hope this doesn't offend you because, you know, you guys are professionals at this. But it seems to me that if somebody comes along and just, you know, blurts out a great brand, the smart people say thank you and run with it and build on it. And that's what I've done because I didn't come up with none of this stuff on my own.
No, we agree, you know, and two, Max, a brand is really about how you feel about things too, right? It's how you make other people feel, and it's how you feel about your own accomplishments. And you're a positive person, and people, no doubt, just the example of your logo alone tells how they feel about you, and
Yeah,
why your audience has labeled your podcast.
Yes, they have.
And
it
really came into also, we tell people all the time, we're like, look, everybody has a brand. You either develop your brand and then share with the world how and teach them how to treat you, or they're going to give you that brand, right? And they give you those brands based upon your actions. And you clearly, like Tanya said, very positive person. You've overcome obstacles that most of us cannot imagine, and yet are highly successful at that. And then now motivating other people with that same motivation, and that became your brand. And then it's such a perfect one because nobody else has an excuse. If Maxwell can get out here and do this, then the rest of us entrepreneurs have no excuse. We're either delusional about the dreams that we say we want out of our lives and out of our businesses, or we're lazy, because you're proof in the pudding that you can achieve those goals and beyond if you're willing to put yourself out there to do that. And so it's a quick marry between be bold and what's your excuse, you know what I mean? Because we try to tell people the same thing. You've just got a much better platform to say it because you do it without sight. And that's great.
Right. Without excuse.
I appreciate that because it never hurts to get a second or a third opinion. And, you know, one thing you said there that reminded me of another experience with branding for me is you said that you, through your actions, you show people how you want to be thought of or treated. And I'm also known as Mr. Midway, and for my other website. And the reason I'm known as Mr. Midway is because I was trying to help the fans of a defunct amusement park in Ohio sell their beloved wooden roller coaster. We were trying to find it a new home before it got bulldozed out of existence. Mm-hmm. And because of the way I talked about their coaster and the way I respected the coaster and them and their park and their memories, one of them just started calling me Mr. Midway, and that stuck. So I like the point you were making there about how it's our behavior and how we show people we want to be treated or how we treat them that can also lead to a solid brand.
Yep.
Right.
Agreed.
Right. Further proof of either you develop your own brand and how you want to be viewed, and, you know, by the way that you treat people, and matter of factly how you develop your own brand, or somebody's going to give it to you and they may not be as lucky as you as being branded the right way, right? Because there are some people that if you leave it up to the people that know them to brand them, it might not be as nice, right? In other words, we need to think about how we want people to see us and treat people the way we would want to be treated. You know, that goes back to the golden rule, but it is, you know, building a brand is a lot of thinking about a lot of that. How do you want to be viewed? Mm-hmm. And you can create some of that on your own as well, because you did that by just behaving the way that you behave. And that caused people to look at you differently, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And a lot of this is by my actions. I've often told people that I have done a lot more mentoring by implication by people watching what I'm doing than I have done in direct one-to-one conversations with people. And that's comes back to what you were saying just now about branding. And you're right, we do have to think about it. Just because somebody offers us a name doesn't mean it'll be great for us. And And pretty much every time somebody has given me one of these brands, I have fought it for a time, some longer than others. And I've even went to blogs and social media to try to find alternatives. But it's just like nobody ever had a really good alternative. And the real thing is none of my existing followers wanted there to be an alternative.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But that
It's
speaks to
meant to
the
be.
authenticity too, you know. You mentioned a lot of things that were challenging clearly in business. What would you say is probably the most challenging that maybe us with sight wouldn't think of? What do you think is one of the biggest challenges that you've overcome over the years?
You know, it seems like there are lots of them, but I would say the biggest regular challenge is being an online personality and doing it with a screen reader and knowing that these websites and apps that I have to spend so much time with are constantly changing. And even what may seem like a small change to the webmasters or to the app builders can be a big problem for me. For example, a year or so back, Twitter decided to move the button on their app for a new tweet from the top right to the bottom left. And since they did not tell any of us visually impaired users they had done that, I went over half a day. The only thing I could do was reply to people's posts because I couldn't find the darn button. Now, there are lots of blind people who are much more tech savvy than I am. I kind of feel like I'm in maybe the middle or the upper middle as far as ability and as far as using the technology, but things like that can really just ruin your day. I'm a member of several websites for finding hosts looking for guests for their podcasts, and one of them last year changed one of the main pages from a format where it used dashes between each element to using underscores. Well, because most of us do everything from our history or our bookmarks, my history and my bookmarks didn't work no more, and I actually had to finally send them an email and go, "Hey, what did you do? Why is this broken? Because I can't use your website right now." So, those small changes that people make to social media, to blog platforms, to website building platforms, those things that change all the time. And I've said this a few times over the year, and so far, Mr. Zuckerberg must not have heard about it yet, but his website is the most offensive, in my opinion, as far as making changes. Basically, in my opinion, just to make changes, because half the time I cannot figure out what the real purpose was. And so over the years, I've said if I ever run into him on the street, I'm going to knock him on his butt. But so far, nobody has mentioned that to him, so I'm okay. But
That's great.
Big challenges like that. That makes total sense, though. What would be? I mean, it's frustrating enough when they change stuff on you that
and you can see,
and you're looking at it. I can't imagine,
yeah. It is frustrating and aggravating, and really, if they sincerely cared about our business, if that's really all most of us visually impaired or other people with disabilities really want. All we really want them to do is to care about our business like they do anybody else's, because a lot of these things could be solved by just a simple short message to their email list or to their social media feeds, because we're all subscribed to the main page of Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and all the others. I mean, they could have avoided a lot of aggravation for me, but most businesses don't truly understand the value of my business as a blind consumer or as a blind client. And the truth of the matter is the numbers are on my side, but most people still don't really think too much about, am I going to prevent what amounts to 1/7 of the world's population from wanting to do business with me? Because if you use the current statistics, most people feel like about 15% of the world has a disability of some kind, whether it's a visible or an invisible disability. And if you take 15% of 9 billion, that's, my math isn't as good as it used to be, but it's well over 1 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't even take into account the fact that as a group, people with disabilities are more loyal than customers in general. We are very heavily brand loyal to companies that we feel care about our business. And there are lots of instances where people with disabilities routinely overpay for products and services because they have been created by companies that we feel like want our business. And those are numbers you can't put in a report anywhere and make people understand. And it's the same thing about employing people with disabilities. In general, people with disabilities are more creative, more flexible, more willing to find unusual solutions, also more dedicated to the job beyond the minimum requirements, and more loyal to their employers.
Makes
Again,
total
stats
sense.
you can't quantify.
Absolutely, you can't quantify that.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Total sense.
Well, Max, I want to switch here on you in the last few questions to focus on something that I believe is so important. And Michael and I try to foster this as much as we can. This program is about be bold branding, being very bold about your brand and unapologetic about this is who I am, this is what I do, right?
Okay.
But one of the things in life that we feel is so very important is inspiration, is motivation, right? And why
Okay.
we do what we do. And you have such a beautiful, positive outlook and personality that just reminds me of my favorite quote of all time from Dr. Wayne Dyer: when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Which leads me to an important question for you. When you first became fully blind, how did you look at that? And then how have you remained so positive over this time to face those challenges head on and to be such an amazingly cheery person, right? Because you are, you have this lovely personality and so cheerful. How have you done that?
Right. Well, it started out with being exposed to very positive people in the early parts of my life, people who never had time in their own lives for feeling sorry for themselves and wouldn't tolerate from others. My grandmother was great. My dad, who I got to spend lots of time as me and him went up and down the roads together with the carnival. Some of my early teachers and the scoutmasters. And, I was lucky. We had a scout troop for boys who were visually impaired here that helped a lot. I went to a school district that had money, so our special education teachers didn't just want to babysit us until they stopped getting paid for us. They actually wanted us to figure out how to learn and how to accomplish our own educational goals. So being set up from the beginning to find the positive and to be around people who just wouldn't put up with it, that had a lot to do with the person I am. And then over the course of years of helping drag a 7-ride carnival around the country, there were a lot of times when things went horribly wrong and we would still find a way. We were just determined that we were going to make opening, or that we were going to make payroll, or that we were going to at least be able to feed everybody if we couldn't pay. We just found a way. And so if you spend 15, 20 years doing that, 10 months, 11 months out of the year, it becomes part of your mental muscle memory. So that really helps. But I don't want people to think that if they weren't raised in a great environment, or if they don't have great people around them, that they can't be just as positive as me, because I still don't think of myself as anything truly special. And I have an expression that I think really helps for people who have yet to become positive for very long at a time, or who wonder how to stay positive. And this is what I tell them: finding the positive, being a positive person, being cheery and optimistic, just like all the other important things, it's a choice. So what you have to do, and I explain it like this: finding the positive, finding the good in your life is just like finding the TV remote. It's there somewhere. You just have to keep looking for it until you find it.
I love that. I love it, Max.
Yeah. So when you get up in the morning, if you get up in the morning and you decide, okay, at some point during my day, I'm going to meet an interesting person. I'm going to have a good experience. I'm going to get a positive email. Somebody's going to call me, or somebody's going to say, hey, nice shirt, whatever it is. If I get up in the morning expecting at least one thing like that to happen, and I look for it all day, I'm not going to find one thing. I'm going to find 5 or 10 things. That's just the way it works.
Agreed.
But you have to make it a practice. You have to build it up over time. And then when, the thunder booms in the middle of the night, you're ready for it. But most people, they need something for today because today is horrible. Unfortunately, we have to build these things up over time. But if people will practice that, saying to themselves, I know that good things are happening to me or will happen to me, and I'm going to keep on the lookout for them until I find them, they will show up. And if you just have to practice it, make it part of you until you don't even think you're doing it anymore. And that's how 5 years ago, when I sold $250,000 carousel and didn't get paid for it, and had already started imagining what I was going to spend my $25,000 fee on, I was able to say, Max, your website got this much traffic. Thousands of people had never visited your website before, came and saw the Midway Marketplace. Or, people started reaching out to you and say, Max, you found a home for a ride that had been storage for 10 years. Can you help me get rid of my piece of junk? There were lots of good things that happened as a result of it. And I still got a top blog post out of it, even though in the blog post it didn't mention that I didn't get paid. But I freely talk about the fact that I didn't get that check. In 2019, I went to New York on a I had 3 cities lined up to do talks at WordCamps, and got sick after the first city. I got sick on the way to New York. I ended up 2 hours away from being homeless. I was broke and sick in New York, but because I had built up a community over the years, because I had this attitude of, I'm going to find a way, but sometimes finding a way means asking for help and letting other people help me. One of my online friends sent me money for a motel room, and the other one sent me money for the train ticket back to Houston.
Wow.
So things like that can happen, but you have to make them a habit. You have to practice them. And so my 3 things that I believe in, that I do all the time are, one is building the community, asking for help, accepting help when offered. And the same thing applies to opportunities. It's not just help. The second is, deciding to find the positive in all aspects of life. And the third one is deciding to find solutions instead of making excuses. And as I mentioned earlier, that one you have to add in the little addendum that even if I don't like the solutions, I'll still go ahead and implement.
Agreed. Those are really good rules in which to live by for everybody. That is, and especially for entrepreneurs, and because we're all fraught with different challenges every day in our business. Is very easy at any time for all of us to just, I'll give up, or it's done with this, and there's no winning in that, obviously. So great advice, Maxwell.
Right. And just one more thing I'd like to talk about. Y'all mentioned putting yourself out there earlier along with your brand. And one thing that I believe in, that I understand there are still some people in the business world who aren't all that down with, is I believe that it doesn't hurt me, it doesn't hurt my brand to share my experiences, even the bad experiences, as long as I can show the results. The education, the comeback, the victory, the solution, as who it was that helped me, how we managed to get out of the problem that I got into. I personally believe that that sharing these kinds of things, it doesn't hurt your brand. Now, I understand there are some people, especially in the business end of the world, who feel really nervous about sharing anything personal about themselves or their business because they're afraid it's going to lose them work. And I'm honest enough to admit that in some cases that may actually be the truth. But my personal experience, and I've been helping get publicity for creative entrepreneurs now online for over 5 years. My personal experience is I haven't worked with anybody yet who telling their story did anything but grow their audience and make them more beloved by the people who found out about them and were following their progress online.
We could not agree with you more.
Bravo.
We could not say it any better. It's every bit of that's absolutely true.
Yes, it is. Well, Max, the show is coming to a close now, which we hate. So we'd love to have you back sometime.
Absolutely.
Hear more of your story. But until then, how can people reach out to you if they want to reach out, touch base, and learn a little bit more about you?
Right. Well, they can always visit theblindblogger.net, theblindblogger.net, or they can send an email to justask@theblindblogger.net. If they want to listen to the podcast, they can tell Alexa or Google or Siri to play What's Your Excuse? They can visit the podcast network at wyexcuse.com. And I'm really proud of that beginning network where I'm helping other people with disabilities launch their own podcasts. wyexcuse.com. And those are the main places people can find me. My social media contacts are on the webpage. And I think that's about it, theblindblogger.net. And I think just one last thing I'd like to mention, because in the spirit of putting ourselves out there, for those of y'all who don't know this, between the time I booked this interview and today, my laptop went down. And I have never done a podcast interview from my tablet or my phone. I have always had my laptop and my headphones. And just think of, if you've ever watched any Peanuts cartoons, it's like Linus without his blanket here. And without my laptop and my, and my headphones and just really having a routine as to how I prepare and get ready emotionally and mentally to do it, have a conversation like this. But, we had no choice. It was either use the tablet or not get a chance to talk with y'all and your listeners today. And so you knew which one I was going to choose even before you found out about it,
That's right.
So absolutely. I feel like it's flawless.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I just want to let people know that we all have our challenges, our setbacks, some of them on a daily basis. And really, whenever I get the opportunity, I like to share them because I don't want people thinking that I'm too amazing. I want them to realize that they can do this just like I can do this. They can find their own solutions if they're looking for them and willing to implement them, even when you don't like them.
I love it.
What a great lesson, Max. Thank you so much for shedding some light and inspiring people today. We appreciate you, and you guys visit theblindblogger.net. Learn all about Sam and follow all those links and follow him everywhere.
That's
okay?
right.
I appreciate y'all so much. I like to make sure I tell hosts this. For a long time, I didn't have the opportunity to meet people in person. So the only way I could get my story out into the world was to do podcasts. So without people like y'all, there wouldn't be The Blind Blogger or What's Your Excuse, because there wouldn't have been any way for people to find out about the work I was doing. So just know that you are just as much of and just as an important part of my journey. And I appreciate it.
You touched my heart. And
Yes.
back at you.
Max,
back at
we
you.
appreciate you too.
You bet. Okay, so we've all met a wonderful new friend today, guys.
That's right.
We love this. Okay, guys, if you have questions about your brand and want to learn more about us, head to discussyourbrand.com and you can schedule a chat with our team and let's talk about how we can help you build a brand as powerful as Max's brand. All right.
That's right, folks. And hey, it's about prosperity. And when I say prosperity, we're not just talking about money. That's only part of it. We're talking about the full 360 of an abundant life that we all wish for every one of y'all. We know here at BrandFace that prosperity favors the bold. So we say be bold, folks, especially with your brand and especially in coming up 2022. We're very excited about that. Mr. Max, thank you so much for your time. And thank you, Ms. Tom.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we'll see you next time on Be Bold Branding.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.